Good afternoon, audience. Thank you for taking time out. My name is Sandeep Parekh. I think Isha mentioned this earlier. I do have with me Sam, Anjani, and Shriji. Uh, all three of you are very warm welcome to the panel. Thanks for sparing your time and hopefully sharing interesting anecdotes and ideas with our audiences today. Um, the theme for the panel discussion is the changing landscape for digital across the pharma and the biotech industry. Um, Absolutely, digital has changed the landscape of most industries. But when it comes to pharma, biotech, and pharmacy, what we have observed is that there have been pockets where digital has made impact. But I think if I were to look at it consistently across the enterprise, digital is yet to really scale. Um, so, Shri, do you think this is a perception or is it the ground reality?
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, Sandeep. Thanks for the question. I'm delighted to be here. Yeah, so this is a relevant question that I get asked, and I think most of us get asked in different discussions that we have. So digital is an evolving term in itself, right? I mean, digital as we speak in its current understanding and current form, I think agree with you that this is not perverse event in the organization. The modern technologies, so that we call digital in terms of artificial intelligence and machine learning and deep learning, and many other things surrounding that has not really been adopted as the mechanism to manage the ways of working and make step changes in what we try to achieve as a business. And as you also rightly mentioned, this may not, a lot of people might say no, but I have done this, I've done this, but that is also true, right? In my company also, we have made some good successes. So for one of the most quoted one is the chatbots that we have which is called Anya. This is a chatbot where people can go and ask a lot of different questions and different therapies that we have, and that has been launched in multiple languages as well. And likewise there are a couple of other more examples as well. But have we taken a consolidated strategic approach with leadership buy-in as well as bottom-up buy-in, and identifying the high impact areas in terms of the use cases that we want to go after. You also probably mentioned in your introduction that we're probably at the cusp, and I think that is where we are. A lot of the organizations are thinking about it. There is momentum being built. And I think we will start to see that happening in pharma and biotech as well. Many of the other industries have already taken huge strides in this space. Even within pharma, a couple of global companies have started moving forward in this. I've attended some sessions where a couple of the big companies have shown what they have achieved as well. So the momentum is building up, and we really, as CIOs, we will be in the middle of that. And really looking forward to make that happen in the industry.
Great, Anjani. Shriji mentioned about strides, so let me kind of go to you to give you a perspective from the strides angle.
Sure. So thank you, Sandeep. Nice stage setting, and before I answer it, I would put a disclaimer. I am new to pharma. I would say around a year. Might be after a few years, when you ask me this question, I'll start defending. But right now I come from consulting, services organization, automobile and logistics. So I will be very neutral, right? Right. And I agree with Sriji completely when he says we have, pharma has been little laggard compared to many other industry. But at the same time, there are pockets where digital has picked up really well. And one of the pockets is the R&D, which you are seeing everyday news about the vaccine, and everybody has been waiting for it, right? Right. The second area where pharma has done very well on digital is the whole customer aspect of it, especially the prescribers, doctors. If you look at in US, I mean, they were using iPads in 2008, 2009, and many of them have been successful where they have been able to even capture what has been doctor's reaction. And based on that, do the dynamic pitching. Again, I am talking of 2019, right? So with that, even if we come as a generic industry, now again, pharma and one is the innovative pharma, another is the generic industry itself. Even in generic industry, as Riji said, there has been successes. He talked about chatbot. In our cases, manufacturing digitization, the lab automations and digitization. It's a big area, and what we have done is we have done really well on those areas. And it is not just I am saying, as I said, I am new to pharma. I have heard this from the other leaders who has come from the other companies to our company. He has said, "Oh, we see digital getting adopted here, which is really heartening to see." And these are the areas I would say we have done really well. So
Excellent.
agree with your thought on we have done in pockets, and we are on the cusp.
So, Shri, what really needs to kind of change? I mean, how do we speed up the digital transformation across the pharma biotech industry?
Maybe before I directly answer that question, I think I'll also bring in some of the thought process around why there is sometimes a little bit of hesitance in the past, right? I mean, this is a very regulated industry, right?
Right.
In terms of product safety and everything around that. So any change to be brought into a well-set process, is subject to that kind of scrutiny, and that makes it a lot more time-consuming and challenging in terms of bringing in that kind of innovation in. But by definition, this industry is innovative, right? So if we can go through that change management aspects that is needed to bring in that kind of innovation to digitally disrupt and make quantum jumps, then there is definitely a possibility. Okay, that is one aspect. The second aspect is always about, and even more so now, is around the risk of security, information security, the OT and IT integration aspects. There's a lot of machines which is there in the OT environment which may not be always compliant. So that is also another thought process in terms of what does that mean from that technical environment point of view. Are we going to be okay if we go down this path? How do we protect ourselves? So that's those are the couple of challenges I think that I would like to highlight why probably this industry would have been a little bit more cautious around this as well. Now, what needs to be done? A couple of things. I think first and foremost, it is a top-down approach that the leadership recognizes that this is an opportunity for the industry, and I think there is good momentum there already. And this has to be coupled very well with bottom-up approach of identifying where could be the biggest bang for the buck, right? Which use cases should we be going for, so that you build the confidence in the system by showing that there is actually significant returns, not just in terms of productivity, but in terms of top line and bottom line benefits that can actually come through. So this is the starting point, in my opinion. So once that is kind of addressed to a certain extent, this is never going to be a perfect scenario, right? So there has to be an approach that we need to jump in, and once this is put in place, the direction setting, the ambition clarity that needs to be brought in, and supported by adequate funding. And then not take a pocketed approach. At least go for one area called manufacturing quality. Let's say, how do you take it from here to there and take a consolidated approach? Similarly, in sales and marketing, we talked about engaging with person patients and things like that. So I think that's what is needed: leadership, buy-in, change management that needs to be brought in by bringing in the bottom-up aspect as well. And of course, that then needs to be followed through with brilliant planning and execution. Without that, it remains a vision and ambition, right?
Yeah. No, I think that's very well put. So yes, I mean, just to summarize, digital has been deployed in pockets across the pharma biotech industry. It's also kind of been challenging, primarily despite the fact that this industry itself is very innovative by the nature. there has been a slow progress because of the regulatory hurdles. And I think I like the word you use, which is it is a very cautious approach that they are taking rather than just kind of, walking down the path without calculating all the risks. And we need to take a very, very bottoms up approach, the right change management and start in the right kind of pockets to ensure that the visibility and impact is fairly high. Anjani, I'll bring you in at this point, given that, you are relatively new to the industry, but also have been, working in other industries. So you've seen the rapid pace in the other industries. Now coming in, would you agree with what Sriji is saying? And how do you see it?
Yeah, I will look at little differently since I come from different industries. I mean, we will have to look at in any industry what was the reason why digital picked up. So in some industry, the whole ecosystem of the users changed. If you look at finance, ecosystems of the user changed, and there was almost a user demand, right? Some industry they realized to grow fast they need to change. Like if you take telecom, that is what happened. CPG had multiple needs. So similarly, in pharma, I agree with Sriji's point. It's a very regulated industry. And what happens is, most of the people look at it, it is working with regulator. So if something is already working, something is not broken, why to tweak it at all, right?
Right.
And that could be one reason. But at the same time, I talked about two areas, right? One area which was the whole Doctor Connect, Healthcare Connect. Their pharma had changed. The second area, which again you have been seeing use every day, which is a vaccine, right? Which is our pharma R&D. If you look at typical pharma R&D life cycle, you are talking of 8 to 12 years easily.
Right.
Today, we are getting restless that how come this vaccine has not come within a year, including regulatory approvals? How do you think is getting done? It is all behind this. It is all digital, right? You are creating models. You are creating even the patients which you are identifying for clinical trials. You are using AI for that. You are using analytics to analyze the result. And not only us, even the regulators are using the advanced technology to analyze the result in no time. Otherwise, regulators were also taking long time to give the approval. So this is I would say, this is the biggest use case where digital could compact the timeline, right?
Right.
This is one. Number two, what is happening is the regulators are well ahead. We might not think, but if you look at FDA capability or any of the other regulator, they are well ahead. And they appreciate if you have done digitization, they actually, their audits, they do appreciate it. And this is one reason I am seeing at least Indian pharma industry, and we can take Srijit's opinion next time. I am seeing the generic industries are going at least they have a plan for digital and there are executions, right?
Right.
So definitely I see that I have few things which needs to do is, one is the leadership education itself. So what is the benefit realization as a leader? I mean, you have been CIO yourself. As a leader, if you don't understand this digitization will bring me what? Very difficult to put a use case benefit realization. So once that happens, I think we have enough will and enough money to implement it. It is more like putting the right people and putting the right use cases.
Sure. I think that's well said. Sam, let me bring you in here. Of course, we heard Sriji and Anjani give their perspective from a pharma lens, but you come from Boots, Walgreens, and very different pharmacy lens. So, what's the kind of value do you believe digital transformation can really drive? And when I say value, I'm really talking about business value and value to consumers, right? So, what's the kind of change that we can expect with digital transformation?
Sure. So Sandeep, before I come to that, then I think very interesting perspective from both Anjani and Sri, especially about what's happening at the manufacturing end and probably, and the sort of the pharma end of the industry. As he said, I'm at the delivery end and probably a slightly different set of markets. So hopefully, bring another perspective to it as you sort of requested. I feel strongly that the value is across the entire customer journey and all the principal touch points, whether it is informative consideration, buying, usage and delivery, post care, and indeed compliance. In the markets that I do business, and they're both diverse and different in the extent of digitalization, consumer demographics, government regulatory push to digitization, like e-pharmacy, from Norway to Mexico to Chile. There is one universal fact. The desire for and the degree of consumer digital engagement with pharmacy is increasing sharply and has been accelerated by the pandemic. As a classic example of what's happened with the pandemic, in our stores, it's not just digital concierge because people can't go into the stores to pick up, whether it is a refill skincare or a normal pharmacy prescription, but it is also a digital, informative, if you like, engagement with products which are coming on board. Of course, now that the UK regulator has approved the Pfizer-BioNTech, vaccine yesterday, then you can understand the sheer interest the country has, and will start delivering, vaccines from next week in the whole process. And that engagement, of course, is being really sort of significantly enabled by digital concierge, digital engagement at the consideration end. But you are perhaps all familiar with using digital in information consideration, But I wanted to give you an example of delivery in another market. In Norway, where there is a government-sponsored program now, a smart device very similar to a Google Home is being used by us to control palliative drug delivery to terminally ill patients living independently, often in remote areas. And I've spoken to some of these patients, in the program, and I must tell you that the value to patient experience and outcome in that example, cannot be overstated. I found it to be most humbling. So I think the consumer is ready for it, and never before, brought in by this pandemic, I think, has the world looked so hopefully and, so with trust, faith, and desire at our industry.
I think that's very well said, and I think between Sri, Anjani, and yourself, you guys brought out some very, very valid points of how digital is actually at the cusp of really transforming the industry. So that brings me to another question that a lot of people might have. Therefore, is digital transformation a typical tactical agenda that is generally associated with IT, or is it a very, very strategic agenda which needs to kind of, be really discussed and reviewed and led by the board, by the CEO? Of course, the CIO is the core execution arm, but should it be really strategic and up level? Sam, do you want to kind of give your perspective, given that you were outside the country, and then we can come to Sri and Anjani?
Sure, Sandeep. As you mentioned, I think, the operational nature of the CIO's role and therefore the operational imperatives should not in this place, I think, be confused with the strategic transformation agenda. In my mind, digital is very much a board agenda, on occasion instigated by, in others, facilitated, championed, or evangelized by the IT leader. It is the board agenda because it is all about customer experience. It's all about colleague engagement. It's all about product innovation. And perhaps finally, it's all about new business models for us. These four concerns are cross-functionally shared across executive teams within most large organizations. And therefore, they must be discussed at, devised in, and driven by the board. My advice to colleagues would be not to underestimate the importance of collaboration or minimize or railroad objections. Courage, conviction, patience, and humility, I think, are required in copious amounts to drive stakeholder engagement and sustained change. Also, understand the role that we are playing and behave accordingly. When we evangelize, we must listen more. When we facilitate, we must play at the non-striker end, supporting in cheeky singles, often with our own wicket, and to borrow a cricket analogy, but use a test and learn approach and focus on the consumer colleague. Only then can we bring this discussion, I think sort of Sri mentioned before, not just with the right impetus and focus, but with the funding and the external collaboration that is required in an industry like ours, which is so regulated.
No, I think that's very, very well said, Sam. Shri, do you want to give a perspective from the local
absolutely.
Countries?
By the way, I also come from a non-pharma background. I've spent more than a decade in P&G, and then Reckitt Benckiser another 5 years, Philips another 5 years. So I think this is one thing is very clear: digital transformation in pharma or any other sector cannot be just a CIO agenda or IT agenda, because then it doesn't even start to move. It doesn't even forget flying, right? So it has to be a board agenda. It has to be sponsored by the leader of the organization, and the other functional leaders also need to have a equal, ownership of this, right? Sam brought an interesting point. We must be trained people in the IT organization to make sure that the credit is given where it needs to be given, so that the change management becomes easier. If you want to take credit, my team actually often ask this question also. What's going on? We did this. I said, we will take credit within our own team. If somebody comes and appreciates you, great, that's a bonus. But maybe a little bit of blowing the trumpet can happen also in the right opportunity, right? But I think it has to be done in a very understated manner, so that this becomes the company and the agenda of the other functions as well, and they need to own it. If they don't own it, you're going to be wagging the tail behind everybody, and nothing is going to move. So this is extremely important.
Absolutely. So I think that's very well said. One of the keys to success of any digital transformation program is the fact that it needs to be collaborated very, very well across the business and the tech function. So I think that's very important. Of course, needless to say that one needs to be very clear about what objectives you want to lay out for the organization by driving digital, right? You don't want to do digital because the neighbor did digital, right? I like Onida's ad, neighbors envy, owners pride. So I think that's not what we are kind of looking at. But I just hope that some of the board members and CEOs are listening to the perspectives that this panel is also kind of bringing about. But for them to be excited, what kind of products do you guys believe, digital will help create? And when I say products, it's like new medicines or new supply chain models and so forth, or new business models altogether. Sam, what's your perspective? And Anjani, Shri, we can come to you right after that.
I think, the opportunities for new products are, sort of certainly, endless, and the degree of innovation that we have seen, certainly in some of my markets, I've been very fortunate with, is striking. I mean, I gave one example before, an example of telehealth in palliative care at home, and I was reading very interested sort of very interesting article from McKinsey about $10 billion being touted as the amount of savings that by 2025 the Indian healthcare sort of industry would make from telemedicine. Now, I mean, obviously, whereas that is a big sort of number at a time when we are all reeling from the economic impacts of COVID, I think sort of the thought to take is what it does to patient experience and what it does to patient outcomes. In my mind, another example, for my mind, which is very current, which we are currently working on, is really around vaccine feedback aftercare through this concept of digital yellow cards. Video consultations, which was only tiny 12 months back, has become mainstream in secondary care, even in hospital care, in most of the markets that we are doing business in. And these markets, as I was telling you, are very different. You go from sort of a place like Mexico to a place like Norway. There's absolutely no similarity in terms of the markets. But I think in that way, the pandemic has been a great sort of cross-market innovation sort of impetus, and I believe with growing conviction, that not only will digital disrupt and create many more innovative products and streamlined services, delivering more fulfilling patient experiences and better outcomes, but the pace that we have come to with this, with the pandemic, will continue unabated. And this will be in the area of telemedicine, it will be in the area of genomics, it will be, in the area of AI and ML. And we can see, the new startups. I know, it would be an interesting area to investigate further. But the degree of investment that the market seeing go into it, I think only augurs great things in the future.
Right. No, I think that's great. Shri, and Anjani, I think given the pandemic, I guess this technology is also forcing manufacturers to really look at different ways of tackling diseases, something that's never come across. I mean, the pandemic is a classic example, right? This is a virus that the humans haven't faced before. So do you think that digital has played a big role? I'm sure it has, but what's your perspective, and how is it going to continue to really help the pharma industry in particular?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the answer is what you said. There has definitely been an impact, and it starts with how we do our daily work, right? I mean, suddenly we couldn't go to the office, and we had to still get the work done. And if anything, work has only gone up during this time, right? So that actually helps change the perception and the mindset towards technology itself, because people are leveraging technology on a daily basis to do what they need to support, they're supposed to do. Now, when it comes to other areas like shop floor, or maybe sales and marketing activity on the ground, or whether it is supply chain related things, the affinity that people will get towards technology because of these new ways of working is going to help. Right, it's going to help with the change management complexities that we usually deal with. Becomes a little bit easier, is what I think, right? Because they see the power of technology and what it can do. If you look at now, having said that, pandemic or not, in pharma, I think technology is becoming a lot more important as we go. So we are traditionally a generic company, but we already have a respiratory device, called Adhero, which is getting more and more digitized as we go. Yeah, it's going to be monitored in terms of how the dispensing happens. Is it in the right quantity and all those kind of things, right? And there are also other areas that we are looking at very actively, and I know the industry is also looking at very actively, around different therapies. For example, mental care, mental disorders. This is a huge area where there is, I think even the doctors will agree that there is a lot of subjectivity. Right? Can we bring in technology to make this a lot more objective, data based, so that the corrective actions that is being recommended and taken by the doctors, and also by aiding the support workers, care workers, families, to provide the right support. So if you take each of the therapy areas, there are opportunity areas like that, where technology is going to become a lot more important in delivering the service appropriately. Telemedicine and teleconsulting, Sam already touched upon. My previous experience in Philips, we already had something called eICU, and I think I was recently reading about a hospital in Kerala where they have implemented something like that, a command and control hub and spoke model ICU. Yeah, so not the tier 2, tier 3 villages doesn't have the right capability. So how do you augment the capacity or capability sitting somewhere else to that kind of hospital and town? So all those kind of models are coming up, and they will be tried out.
I think that's great. But Anjani, how do you view the kind of new products and experiences, particularly from the pharma side? I mean, do you think that you guys are going to be able to leverage technology to really create new drugs altogether?
That's a very difficult question. What Sam said. The definition of new drug itself is very different. I mean, you might have heard the terminology called, digital pill, right? And that's nothing but digital pill is what Sam touched upon, is digital engagement. So whether you take pharmacy or you take pharma manufacturer or you take healthcare, for all of us, the focus is the patient. How are you able to serve the patient? And as we go digital, it's a 360-degree view, which is pharma plus digital ecosystem, how you bring it. And this is what I think exactly most of the pharma companies are working on in longer term. Like even if you look at how we used to get customer complaints 5 years back and today is very different. It used to take sometimes days, sometimes months before it used to reach to us. Today, it takes few hours or sometimes few minutes before it reaches to us, and within a month the whole investigation is done and we have identified the problem, rectified the problem. That's the kind of engagement it is increasing. Coming back to what I talked about is the R&D, how we are doing the vaccine, the whole pharma industry. So this has given a good lesson to the whole pharma industry, including generic, that hey, many things which we thought could be done in years and years using the right technology and right processes, also the right pharma technology, not just the digital, right pharma technology,
Right.
It can be done very fast. So of course, whether we as a company do it, but of course I would say that generic company is moving into the next level, and I won't be surprised in few years if you are seeing that we are able to come up with some of the medicine, some of the therapeutic area for which there are no medicines, right? Or some of the diseases for which we have been struggling, or new diseases which is coming. Might be India comes up with some of the medicines. I won't be surprised. I think we are on that path for sure.
So, staying with you, Anjani, I think you and Shri mentioned that artificial intelligence and machine learning, natural language processing, generation, etc., have been started to be applied in the pharma industry. What is the maturity that you kind of believe these technologies and the solutions that leverage these technologies are at from a core pharma biotech industry standpoint?
Like as we talked about, that it is on the cusp of maturing. So what has happened is in different pockets, again in R&D area, if you look at it, AI ML is already used very extensively, and in innovative pharma, in generic pharma. If you come to pharma manufacturing, there is something called, I will use a term, pharma terminology called IPQA, right? In process quality checks. There, I mean, what you do is, what is the shape, what is the color, what is the thickness. Previously, most of these were getting done completely manually. Today, there is a vision technology, computer vision technology, using which most of the companies could do it because this is a fairly mature technology. Then the second one comes is a lot of root cause identification we do in pharma. If there are anomalies, OOS, deviations, it can, so AI can, using NLP, can read that, correct? Read the documents, can tell you whether it has been done rightly, whether it has not been done rightly, and we already have instances of it where we figured out that machine has given us more accurate than human beings. So we did some comparisons, right? Third one is the whole IoT. When you have, and this is nothing new because IoT in manufacturing is fairly evolved, I would say. If you go to automobile industry or if you go to CPG industry, so could you do predictive analytics for the quality, right? And this is one area which is definitely coming up. And then the digitization of quality, which we talked about, we have made fairly good progress, and many other companies would also have done. So I would say from that perspective, all the latest technology. Another one is AR VR, which we have started using, which you could do in lab, which you could do for virtual assist, which you could do for line clearances as an operation control. So I would say all of these technology enables us to do it fast, do it right first time, right? Our do it right first time has increased like anything using these technology.
I think that's very well put. Shri, do you want to kind of also share your perspective? So I think Anjani spoke about the application of these technologies today and the kind of relative maturity. But do you want to kind of share also what's the future? I mean, how are these technologies going to be used in the future, or how's the pharma industry actually thinking about deploying digital, particularly AI, IoT, blockchain, etc., from a future standpoint?
Yeah. So I mean, some of the examples that Anjani was talking about is something that I see in our area, and I talk to other peers also happening. But I think in R&D, where Anjani mentioned there is already technology being leveraged, I think that is going to go through some quantum leaps, in the future. We are already starting to see that in this current pandemic scenario, right? So the drug discovery and the drug repositioning, these are two areas where technology is going to help accelerate the process to a great extent. And when acceleration happens, two things get impacted. One is you get the outcomes and the medicines faster, but more importantly the cost goes down as well, right? It's millions that get spent on this, so the patient care becomes a lot more affordable from that point of view. So this is an area where I think there will be a lot more innovation that is going to come. The second area where I think people are trying out like IPQC or predictive analytics in terms of maintenance or the mixed quality in the making operation. So people are trying out all those things, but maturity, in my opinion, is very low. And this is an area where I am starting to see at least there is momentum. People want to do it. People see that this is going to give a lot more quality product to come out in a much more reliable manner, batch after batch, or maybe even go to continuous manufacturing, right? But there, continuous manufacturing will have a different point of view in terms of the lines and the equipments and the machines that is needed, but the technology is the basis again for this, right? So these are two areas where I believe there is going to be a significant uplift in terms of how technology is going to impact in our industry. In other areas, in other functional areas, I don't think there is a big difference between pharma and the other sectors, right? When we talk about supply chain or finance or whichever function that we are talking about, the application of the different technologies is going to be very similar between the different sectors. But these are the two areas where pharma will stand out.
And how do you see this technology being applied in on the regulatory side? I mean, say pharmacovigilance or
Yeah, yeah.
like
No,
that.
so there also we are already leveraging technology to a great extent. So, for example, social listening, right? In terms of picking up the adverse events that gets reported,
Right.
and how do we make sure that gets picked up at the right time, looked at, analyzed, even reported to the FTA authorities,
Mm.
for example, right? So this is an area where definitely it's already happening. It
Okay.
is not. I mean, maturity may not be very high, but the steps have been taken and technology is being used here already. And pharmacovigilance, in addition, when we do that kind of work in pharmacovigilance, there are other areas also that's going to get benefited, which could be in terms of understanding which patient segments should we be actually looking at in terms of serving, right, from a sales and marketing
Mm.
point of view. By the way, in the sales and marketing side, in the commercial side, let's say, we already leverage a lot of the digital tools and techniques that we have to make sure that we communicate appropriately to the different stakeholders, whether it is doctors, whether it is patients. Yeah, so that is already happening. Yeah.
Right. Perfect. Sam, just a quick word from you on on your experience, particularly from the pharmacy side. I mean, how do you look at these technologies really changing the way pharmacy industry really works, or the last mile industry actually works from the retail perspective?
Oh, I think, Sandeep, there's some fantastic stuff going on around e-pharmacy and sort of the delivery end of medication, if you like. I mean, as you know, health tech is booming, and worldwide, the sort of the figures for the first half of 2020 that I saw was about 9.1 billion, which compared to about sort of 2019, were 19% up, and this given the current market. And one such particular innovation which we worked with, and which is quite big in the UK market, is Echo, which is basically a Deliveroo of medicines, if you like. This business sort of was acquired by McKesson, the healthcare giant, and is used in a competitor pharmacy in the UK, and now sort of other people are looking to collaborate with them, and they've seen a 300% growth. And if you imagine, for people who've been secluding or isolated during this period, again, sort of the adoption increases have been amazing. But I mean, I think as I think Shri mentioned, I mean, I think the ability for the consumer and the patient to interact with pharma in enabling and speeding up drug delivery cannot be underestimated. The digital yellow cards that I mentioned,
Absolutely.
he mentioned this. I think the faster the feedback, the more pointed it is, the more we know about where it is coming from, the more impact we can have.
Sure. I think that's great. I mean, we've spent a lot of time talking about technology and how it's really either already impacting the industry today from a pharma, biotech, pharmacy perspective, or going to impact. Now, all three of you are CIOs, CDOs. How do you see that the global tech players have invested in this space? I mean, are they investing a lot of money? Do you see a lot of startups kind of cropping up in this space? Can the pharma industry, the biotech industry really look up to the global tech majors or the startups? And what kind of investments are you really looking at? I think, Sam, you spoke about 9.1 billion in the healthcare technology. But typically, from a global tech and a startup perspective, do you see first there's interest? Are they investing? And if yes, what's the kind of monies they are spending? Sam?
I think there's huge interest, Sandeep, and I think the three areas, which would probably be no surprise, is, AIML as one group, telemedicine and telehealth as another, and sort of finally, in diagnostic care. But I think, sort of, if you look at it, again, another example, benevolent AI, which you sort of probably have heard of, again, using artificial intelligence and machine learning in the genomic space to speed, drug delivery and sort of drug research. Again, I mean, the kind of investment, I mean, if you think of a company which has been making
Sam?
If you think of a company, I don't know what happened, some kind of a noise disruption, apologies. If you think of the kind of investment these companies are sort of, if you like, attracting, Temasek valuing a company as a unicorn, a $1 billion company when they made a significant loss the previous year. I think the interest is unabated, I mean, I think you will see, and driven by national agencies and consumer interest, I think you will see more and more, investment in startups in this area.
Okay. Anjani, your perspective, I mean, any specific data points as well that you have?
Sure. So as Sam talked about, health tech has been top 5 areas if you look at it in when you go to a startup at some point of time.
Right.
Of course, when it is health tech, it is not just health tech. The health tech consists of, when the pharma, many of them are pharma drug delivery, pharma manufacturing, and it's a combined digital pill which we talked about. So from that perspective, if you look at startup ecosystem, there are a lot of innovative companies coming in. If you go to established companies, I don't see if take tier 1 product companies, I don't see a lot of new product coming in for pharma industry specifically. Also, the ones which are already there, be it LIMS, be it quality management system, those are very dated, especially when you come from outside of the industry, be it Sriji, be it me. We feel it's a very dated software, right?
Sure.
But again, our hope is the startup, and some of the startup which we see is really state-of-the-art, latest technologies. And I think pharma companies are adopting to that level, because I was talking to some of the pharma startups in New Jersey, and they said they don't have time for POC for next 6 months because they have already signed up with seven pharma companies. Right. So that is what my view would be.
Okay. Now, I think that's very interesting. I mean, quickly before I wrap up and summarize the session, because I think we're running out of time, digital deployment and scale up in the pharma, biotech, pharmacy industry, is it going to impact the economy, particularly in India, positively? Yes, no? And if you have any idea of how many basis points we are going to kind of help the economy over the next couple of years, would be great. Each one of your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think I should have a crystal ball to say that number, to be honest. But for sure, I mean,
Mr. Modi would be listening to you.
Yeah. Hail Modi. Yeah. So basically, the thing is, this is a sector where we do very well in India already, right?
Right.
We are so called the global pharmacy, and we have all kinds of good attention and bad attention because of that. Now, there are also geopolitical scenarios that is playing out. Right? There is dependencies with other markets, you know what I mean, but they are not going to sit still. Okay, so this is not going to be an easy run for us. This will definitely generate employment, bring more innovation, bring more pride, and bring more manufacturing facilities, R&D facilities. All that is going to add up in terms of basis points addition to our economy and GDP growth. But this is still going to be a competitive environment. Other markets, sometimes maybe they are only an API provider now, but there is already plans for them to vertically integrate upwards to become a pharma player themselves. So we need to be extremely aware of that, cautious in terms of what the strategic calls do we make, how do we keep our edge, decades of edge that we have, and not lose out. If we can do that, I think we will continue to be a huge player in this, and it will add very well to our economy, not only our economy, but also global economy.
Perfect. Sam, a quick perspective from your side?
I mean, I think, like the sheer democratization of opportunity and funding. I'm a great believer that, Indian talent will find, many more opportunities to come. I wish I could size it. I'd be a billionaire then, but I'm sure, there will be many, many opportunities.
Anjani, your last word on this?
Yeah. So you have already heard that we are pharmacy of the world.
Right.
And just to give a number, 60% plus generic medicine which is consumed in US is made in India today, right? Coming back to, of course, we have to be careful because other people could do. But I look at pharma industry in India is more like software industry, where we started from Y2K, and over the period of time it has matured to a pretty good level. And I am seeing the same thing happening in pharma, because 10 years back, if you talk of innovative medicine, except one company, which is no more exist as that company, none of them were even trying. Today, you are talking of at least 6 to 7 company which is into innovative medicines already. They have one or more approvals, and this is what I see that I can't, again, just like them, I also can't put a number, but I am very gung ho not just on generic medicine, but I think that in value chain we have moved up so much that it is very difficult to stop even if the competition comes.
Excellent. So thank you very much. Let me just quickly summarize, I think, for our audience's benefit. So digital truly has changed the landscape. It has the potential, and it will, as Anjani said, it will make the impact. We are on a road of no return. So clearly, I think digital has started. It is, already making a significant impact for biotech as well as the pharmacy industry, and today we are at a stage where it is only going to explode from here. It is going to impact not just the consumers from the experience perspective with new products, and I hope the board CEOs are listening. So digital is the way to go if you want to stay relevant and stay ahead of the curve. It is something, and the panel believes, and so do I mean, it is something that will take India from just being the world's largest pharmacy to actually being the world's most innovative and relevant pharmacy of the world, producing medicine and experiences that are par excellence. So with that, I will thank all the panelists and hand back to Isha. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Parekh. And I must say, the way you summarized, the way you balanced it out, this panel was indeed full of a lot of learning for all our audience members. So once again, a big thank you to you for moderating the session. And I'd also like to take this opportunity and thank our panelists, Mr. Shriji Gopinathan, Mr. Sam Sahana, who will also be joining us for a session a little later, and of course, Mr. Anjani Kumar. So thank you all for joining us for this very, very special panel discussion. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
And there's a lot of excitement ahead for our audience members as well. But before I introduce our next session, I'd like to tell you what all we have in store for all of you. Yes, you have a chance to win yourselves Amazon vouchers up to 2 lakh. All you've got to do is visit our partner booths in the Experience Zone, connect with our partner representatives, download the assets, interact with them, get to know more about their products and services. What you can also do is visit our photo or booth in the lobby, click pictures, and tag them on the social media using our hashtag ETGlobalDXLeague. We'd love to have you throughout our session, so please do continue to stay with us. I'd also like to request all of you to please fill up the feedback forms, which you can find in the resource center and also in the lobby area. So a lot of excitement is waiting for you throughout the day. Please stay tuned for our next session. I'll be introducing our next speaker in just a bit for our industry expert keynote session on creating value in a digital world, the role of emerging technologies. Till then, get a chance to connect with our partners in the partner booth in the exhibition area.